New Year's resolution was to make a more consistent posting schedule, and we are not doing well. Hello guys, I am back. My hair looks a bit like Professor Snape's, but we're just gonna pretend that's not a thing. I know a lot of you have been requesting this video, and I am very sorry that it took me so long to make it, but here you go. A lot of you have already been notified that you're moving on to the UWC interview, and if that's you, congratulations. Oh my gosh, this is such an exciting time. A little bit stressful, but you're going to do great, and I hope that this video can give you some tips on how to make your interview game just a little bit better. The question I always get asked is, what is the interview like? And unless you're from Ontario, Canada, I cannot answer that question to any degree. Every single UWC interview is going to be different. So I really cannot answer specific questions about how much you need to know about a certain topic or what you should do for this or what to expect, because honestly, I know about as much as you about your country's application process. Unless you're from Ontario, in which case I know a lot about your interview process. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about what the interview for me was like for the Ontario people watching, and just so you can see what some of the questions are kind of like, because again, it'll be different, but it's still a UWC interview, and knowing those questions might help you out a little bit. So they broke it down for us into 3 parts. They had general questions, situational questions, and then global questions. So a general question could be something about, what has challenged you in your life? What are you most proud of in your life? Those kinds of things. Situational questions are really about what you're going to do if you get into UWC. So you're in your room and someone is always calling their parents late at night and you can't sleep because of it. What do you do? How do you handle the situation? It's a lot about context-based conflict resolution skills, and it's really seeing if you would be good in the UWC environment, and quick problem solving, interpersonal skills, all that. The last section is global, and that's how much you know about global issues. So my questions were really nice. They were really, really broad. So I think one was like, how can we as individuals tackle climate change? The other one was about our newly elected Premier, Doug Ford, and what his policies were. So yeah, that's a general breakdown of the questions, and hopefully that gives you an idea of the kind of assortment of questions they'll have. Even if you aren't from Ontario, even if you aren't from Canada, they'll probably have those general groupings of questions. Questions about yourself, questions about how you would handle life at UWC, and questions about global issues. So global issues. A lot of people have been asking me, how much do I need to know about what's happening in the world? And I remember when I went to my interview, that was the thing I was the most worried about. I was so scared. I'm like, I don't know what's happening in the world. I have no idea what's going on. They're gonna ask me all this stuff. I'm gonna have no answers. So I read the news for a couple weeks before my interview, which I should probably just do on a daily basis anyway, but I don't. But honestly, for me, it wasn't that big a deal, and I haven't really heard of anyone for whom it was a huge deal. If I'm wrong, correct me down in the comments below, please let me know. But in general, I think that as long as you know the big issues that are happening, I know in the past there's been questions about climate refugees, about the Me Too movement, so it's kind of big issues that if you talk to people in a political context at all, if you're even vaguely informed of what's happening in the world, you can probably form an opinion or some kind of answer to that question. So now I'm going to move on to general advice, and I don't want to give you the classic interview tips that you can find in every YouTube video, be on time, speak clearly, think about your answers, because everyone knows that and I don't want to repeat what everyone else has been saying. But after I went to my interview, when I initially planned to make this video, I wrote down a bunch of tips I had, so I'm just going to read through them and talk through them with you. The first one is be friendly, and that seems really obvious, but I think a lot of times people are really, really scared for their interviews, which makes sense because it's UWC and it's a big deal and it seems like this huge thing. But at the end of the day, the people there want you to get in. They want to find good students, and they have chosen you because they like your application and because they want to meet you in person. So when you get there, try not to be intimidated, try to just have a conversation with them, be a kind, warm person. The next thing is they want you to succeed, so I already said that, but they really do want you to get in. Everyone on the committee is so friendly. They're just all gonna have big smiles on their faces and they're gonna be so passionate. A lot of them are UWC alumni themselves, and UWC alum want kids to go to UWC. I just finished my first semester and I already want everyone watching this video to apply to UWC. It's such a good movement that the people who are interviewing you, if you've made it to the interview stage, they genuinely want you to get in. So don't worry, they're not there watching you, waiting for you to slip up. They're there encouraging you and trying to find the good. So don't worry too much if you stutter, if you say something you think is stupid, they're not going to focus on that. The next part is really, really, really important. Do not memorize your answers. And this one's kind of cliche, you might have heard it before, but it's so important. It's kind of hard to memorize answers if you don't have the questions ahead of time. Most interviewers don't give you your questions. I actually got my questions 10 minutes ahead of time. Again, show up early. But I don't know what it's like in other places. If you do have an opportunity to see the questions, or if you know what they're going to ask you about, just try not to say anything that seems memorized or forced. You really want to just talk to them. You really want to sound genuine. So if there's anything in there that's memorized or that you plan to say, it's just going to come out inauthentic and it won't impress them at all. Next thing is know about what's happening in your country. I think sometimes people take for granted how much they know about their own countries, and they are so worried about, you know, learning all about the world and stuff like that. They don't really take a moment to just learn about their countries, about the current issues going on. If an election just happened in your country, I would look into that. I would know the name of your leader. I would know the main political parties. I would know if there's Indigenous people, what are the Indigenous population's names, those kinds of things. Again, you don't have to know every piece of trivia about your country, but knowing the general facts and the general political issues are good because they might ask you about that. And you're going to be an ambassador for your country. So in order to effectively represent your country, you need to know about your country. Next part is give them genuine responses. Don't tell them what you think you want them to hear. Don't tell them what you think you should think. Tell them how you feel. I've said this in a bunch of videos before, but there are people at UWCs with controversial opinions. There are people at UWCs who don't stick to the status quo. That's what UWC is for. So really think about the questions, really give an authentic answer. Don't just say the first thing that comes to your mind, because they really want to know what you think. They don't just want to hear what, you know, anyone they pull off the street will say. Next one is use a bit of humor. Don't be afraid to crack some jokes with your interviewers. Again, most interviewers, if not all interviewers, will be really friendly people, so don't be afraid to have a bit of humor in there. It doesn't all have to be a very serious, formal interview. UWCs are pretty casual places. And the last one is make sure you answer the question. Sometimes when you're talking, you get so wrapped up in your own tangents and your own personal anecdotes that you lose track of what they're trying to tell you. You lose sight of what you're trying to say in the first place, like I just did. So really try to keep the question in mind when you're answering it. Don't be afraid to take a pause if you need to, and try not to take over the entire interview with, you know, stuff that you have to say, because they have very specific questions that they want to ask you. So answer those to the best of your ability and then let them ask the next one. Don't just go on and on and on and on because you think they just want to hear you talk a bunch. And the last piece of advice I have to give you is just be calm and confident when you walk in. You're going to be nervous, you're going to be scared, but ultimately when you walk into that room, they just want to have a conversation with you. They just want to talk to someone really, really interesting and then do their best to get you into a UWC. Go in there with a smile on your face, and at the end of the day, whatever you don't know, whatever you aren't ready for, you can't change before you walk into that interview room. You are as prepared as you're going to be. At the end of the day, you're going to do your absolute best, and that's all that matters. So in that moment, right before you take a step in, just take a deep breath, go in with a smile, and rock it. You're gonna do so great. I am so excited for all of you. Let me know how your interviews go. If you have any other questions, comment down below. Let me know what you want for the next video. Subscribe, like, do all that stuff. Hit that notification bell to get notified, because I don't have a consistent posting schedule and you have no idea when I'm going to upload my next video. Came full circle. Alright guys,